Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Astro Imaging channel. My name's Alex, and I'm going to be talking to you today for a little while, but mostly I'm going to turn it over to Tolga. Tolga's got some stuff to tell us about our Facebook page, and I wanted him to tell us all about that. So Tolga, are you ready to take over here?
Yeah.
Okay, go. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Astro Imaging channel. My name's Alex, and I'm going to be talking to you today.
Who's that?
That's Alex. Alex, you need to mute your YouTube. Okay, I'm just gonna mute Alex.
We all set?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm going to show you guys our Facebook group. So we have a Facebook group. We have about we have 1,125 members. A lot of people share their pictures here. You just have to become a member. When you come here, you have to join the group, and then one of us will approve you. Once you become a member of this group, you can share your pictures with us and with all the other members. And we also post our coming up shows here. And then I'm scrolling down just to show some of the pictures that have been submitted this week. It's a great place to get together, chat with your co-astrophotographers. We also have a Facebook page. I'm going to show you that too. This is our Facebook page. Here, you can't be a member and you can't post. This is only for us. This is almost like a website. You can follow this page, and you will get notifications for when we do a post. You'll get a notification, but the group is where you can post. So I'm going to go back to the group, and here it is. And the link to this group, here you go. Somebody actually wants to be joined, and I'm going to accept them right here. Approve. There you go. They become somebody came in. This is where you want to join, and this is where you can post your pictures. That's about it. Oh, I put a link to this group in the videos, this YouTube video's description. That's all I have to say. Alex, you're muted.
Yeah, I muted him. I'll unmute him. Hang on. Oh, I can't unmute him. Alex, unmute yourself.
I'm working on it. Okay, Molly. Hi, everybody. The reason I wanted Tolga to talk about the YouTube or about the Facebook page and the Facebook resources for us is, well, first off, I wanted everybody to know about the Facebook page and the Facebook group where you can contribute pictures and things like that. But remember a couple of weeks back, I started asking for you to send in your NeoWise pictures. We were thinking it'd be nice to, because everybody's going to take a picture of NeoWise, if we got together and we put all those pictures together someplace where we could just have a 2-3 minute slideshow of everybody and their NeoWise pictures. Now, some of you have sent me an email. I think I've gotten 3 emails that said, can I present, or I'm not on Facebook or something like that. Yeah, you can send them to me, send me a link or something like that by going to contact@theastroimagingchannel.com and so forth. And that will get you there. And then if you've got them in by Wednesday, I will pretty much guarantee that whatever you turn in will be part of our show. It's just going to be a nice, simple PowerPoint slideshow with a little bit of music, if I can figure out how to do that and all that other stuff. But that's about it. Now, when I said you can get a hold of me, if you go to theastroimagingchannel.org and you hit the contact page, you'll find a place where you can contact us. And remember, this is also the place where you can volunteer to be a presenter We need presenters. We're pretty good up through about mid-September. We got September 13th open, and then after September 20th, I think we've got dates open. We need people to share their experiences with astroimaging. If you built an observatory, if you've got a neat portable rig, if you've got a processing technique that you would like to share, do not worry that somebody else has already made a program on that, or that somebody else is smarter than you, prettier than you, more articulate than you, or any of those kinds of things. What we're looking for are people that really love what they're doing and want to share it with other people. If you come to this page, the contact page at the astroimagingchannel.org, you can get a hold of us. If you come to this page, calendar page, you'll see that Graeme is going to be presenting for us tonight about transient objects, meteors, comets, and such that fly through the solar system and we want to take a quick picture of. And then we've got other people coming up in the coming weeks that you can see. We've got a pretty wide variety of people coming in. So please hook yourself up with us and, be here every night, every Sunday night. Because over here, you've got a great chance to make comments. Now, some of you treat this as a club. That's okay. Yeah, hey, how's your imaging going? Hey, did you get NeoWise? Yeah, fine. Go ahead, do that. But it's also a great place to ask Graeme questions as he goes through tonight. We'll have people monitoring this and passing these questions on to Graeme. There's a place down there at the bottom to contribute money so we can, run our website and things like that, the things that cost us money. And we're up to 9.9 and a quarter thousand, 9,240 some subscribers. This number has been growing. If you are watching now and you're not yet a subscribed member, click on the subscribe button so that you can join us. And also, just to give everybody a pat on the back, if you like what we're doing, click on the like buttons. Okay, tell us you like it, because that's how we keep going. All right. Okay, Graeme has sequestered himself in a secure basement where he's been pouring concrete all day, and I'm sure he is eager to tell us about transient objects. So Graeme, if you can just go ahead and take over for us, I'm going to stop presenting. It's yours, Graeme.
All right. Okay, and that's great. All right, so hi everybody. My name is Graeme Hay. I'm an amateur astro photographer, and I'm here tonight to talk to you about basically photographing transient objects in the night sky. And so tonight's talk, we're going to talk about a bunch of different transient objects that you might see in the night sky, and I'm just going to try to give you a couple tips and tricks on how to take pictures of those, but also open to any questions you might have at the end of the show to sort of say what kind of things you might want to know. So we're going to cover the night sky, imaging planets, imaging comets, solar imaging, capturing transients like across the sky, across the sun, and also you can do this for the moon. We're also going to be looking at other transient events that happen. There's actually quite a list of things that occasionally happen. And then I'm going to talk to you about some of the software that you can look at. And then hopefully with all this working, I'm going to get a Stellarium demo running and just give you a quick little sort of how you can use Stellarium, because that seems to be a popular software that everyone likes to use to sort of say, how can I find these objects? And more particular, when you're pointing them and stuff, and how Stellarium can show you some stuff, particularly things like meteor showers. So the only thing constant in the night is change. Change is the only constant, sorry. So a lot of people like me, I mainly do deep space object astrophotography. And as you can see here with this photo of the Orion Nebula, basically what you end up with is I can go out there and shoot that when it's up in the sky, and my photo, depending on how the processing, the seeing conditions, etc., is going to look similar to a whole bunch of other people. And I know I can go out night after night after night when it is up in the night sky and take that photo. Now, the sky is obviously turning, so there is always something new and different to take each night. But I know if I don't get it this year, I can get it next year and the year after that, and it's going to look pretty much the same. While that's not 100% true on all deep space objects, it's pretty much 99.99% of the norm. So it's something to consider. Whereas transient objects, my definition for that is it's something that either you take it now or it's not going to happen. Like once in a lifetime opportunities, sometimes unique events, and then sometimes it's things that happen like each year, like a meteor shower, but it's only one time a year and you have a very small window to see it. So in terms of like things that you're going to look at that are transient, that are very changing, obviously the lunar cycle is a monthly cycle. You have lunar and solar eclipses, which are basically biannular events each. You have the sky rotation every night based on the spin of the Earth. You have planets moving, and the planets have moons moving. So if you want to image a transient of a moon in front of a planet, or when a planet is oculated by another planet or the moon, again, it's very specific timing on when those events happen. Either you have clear skies and your telescope is looking at it and you see it, or you miss it. And then things like we have is satellites, the ISS, and a bunch of other little things that are flying around our night sky that are photo-worthy, and also some things that are maybe not so photo-worthy. And then again, you have airplanes, drones, and rockets, especially if you happen to be near a launch pad. There's been some amazing photos from rocket launches of the emission spray from the engines. So first, I'm going to talk to you about imaging planets. So every night, planets are moving, and as you can see here in this picture of Saturn, they also themselves are changing based on their position relative to us. And as they go around the sun, they're going to shift in orbit and their own axis, where we have an axis that changes annually. That's where you get winter and summer and spring and all that good stuff. Planets like Saturn and Jupiter, they have it where it's changing. In Jupiter's case, I think it's like a couple days of rotation, whereas with Saturn, it pretty much looks the same from your telescope. But the rings themselves, as it's changing its rotation axis, do move. So things to consider. And also on Mars, right now the plume is back, and some people are going to be trying to image that. And that's sort of a transient event on the surface that you can see if you have a big enough telescope that gives you sort of a unique image versus just here's Mars, which again has some seasons, but relatively, again, red dot. So for best results in terms of like imaging planets. Now, these photos here I've taken and I've used the digital SLR method, which is taking pictures. And I'm using this as an Edge HD 8-inch scope. And it works, but it's not the best way to do it. Having a dedicated planetary camera, you're going to get better results. And you're going to definitely get better results if you're doing it the video method, which I believe I talked to here. Yes. So when you're doing planetary, ideally what you want to do is called the lucky seeing method, which is where you're using a camera's video capabilities to basically take 30, 40, 60, 100, 120 frames a second, and then you're using software to process through and decide which of those is the sharpest, because seeing in the planets move all the time. And you're going to take those top like 10, 20, 30%, depending on your overall seeing, and you're going to stack them into a final image. Now, that sounds pretty easy. And for things like Saturn, Mars, if you're imaging Venus, you can go and get a whole pile of stacks and then put it together. However, if you're doing Jupiter, because Jupiter's rotating so fast, you only have about a 5 to 7 minute window before the planet's actually rotated so much that it's going to blur your image. So something to keep in mind if you want to get a nice sharp image of Jupiter. Realize that when you see those online, it's generally 5 to 7 minutes where they've pulled the best 5-10% out and then stack those. And some of the software you can use is like AutoStacker, PIPP for if you're doing the photography method and you want to just pick your top 10% of your photos. And then for capture, you can also use SharpCap, which is quite popular. So imaging comets. So this is a popular hot topic right now, despite the fact that that photo is a comet that was back in 2015. But yeah, so imaging comets, Obviously, we just had Neowise come through and everybody was imaging it. So I'm going to quickly go through this. I think everyone's gone and Googled this already. But basically, yeah, so comets come and go. Each comet is its own unique entity. And while there are a lot of graphs and estimates based on what they think the brightness is going to be, what they think the tail is going to be, it can change on a dime very quickly. And we have seen, like earlier this year, where comets just simply break up as they're approaching the sun. And you go from, wow, that's an amazing comet, to, oh, it's gone. So comets, you want to get out there as soon as you can to see them, because they can basically change very quickly. And awesome. So yeah, so this here is Comet Warren. This photo, I just took my camera, pointed it straight up, and just like took a photo with a low light camera. The thing you have to realize is that these guys are moving. I think everyone has an idea. And I pulled out a chart here that shows, like, for Comet Warren, which was back in December, it just shows sort of like it's moving through the night sky every night. So you sort of, if you're imaging it, it's going to be in different locations. And again, the brightness is going to change each of those nights. And relative to Earth, the motion is going to be more or less. Because if you look at the photo, you'll see from December 6th, 7th, and 8th, the distance is actually less than on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, where it's wider. The comet is moving farther relative to us in terms of visual angle. So something to keep in mind on those things is that they are moving. So you have to, when you're imaging them, account for that movement. So as I said, comets are fickle things. So these are two photos of Comet Neowise. The bottom one is from an early morning shoot, and the top one is from an evening shoot about 10 days later. Both these were taken in a Bortle 1 zone. The morning one, the Bortle rating didn't really matter. There was so much light pollution from the sun rising. But the top one there, you get a really good effect. And this is the thing that with comets, their tails are generally pretty faint, even smaller ones that are maybe not as media related. And people are going, hey, everybody go see this because it's visually eyed magnitude. Darker skies really help for comets because you get that tail. And yes, comets, for the most part, you want to take a wide angle lens. You can do it with a small telescope, but if you want that like long string tailed, generally you want a wider lens. And then once you've taken a couple photos and you see where that tail sits, then you might want to consider going into more telephoto lens. But generally telescopes are a little bit too much for comets. You do need, in processing, some special software. There are a couple programs will do this, and they all call it something about the same, but it's generally your photos, which you've done in short exposures to ensure that you have the comet sharp, because they are moving against the night sky. And if you take a long 5-minute exposure, you're going to end up with this lovely blurred line. So you want something, you want to keep them short exposures. You want to do comet align. And what that allows you to do is then stack the comet and its tail in relation to the comet to take that into one solid image, which is what you see sort of in the Bortle 1 picture. Now, one quick note on this is that you have to shoot in RAW. I don't know of any software that will do the JPEGs because they tend to toss a lot of data. So you want to shoot this in RAW because you want that time stamped data, because the software basically determines your first photo, what time is it? Your second photo, what time is it? And it assumes that the comet moves linearly between the two locations based on the time. So just something to keep in mind. And yes, if you move your camera or anything like that, comet line will not work. And you can always manually stack a comet photo, but again, that takes quite a bit of time, and there's software to do that. Now, if you want a nice shot like that, where the comet is actually not blurred and the stars are not blurred, you actually have to do this twice. Once comet align and once star align, and then basically take the stars and pull them out using a star mask and then put them back on top of your comet photo. So you can use something like StarNet++ to get that star mask out of the starline photos, but that's sort of how you get the comet and the stars both not streaking when they both are basically streaking in comparison to each other. Then we're going to get into solar imaging. So I know it sounds cliche, but always have a solar filter in front of your telescope or any opticals. Never look at the sun unfiltered. And please, please, please make sure you're buying it from a known, legit source. Don't just go buy it off the internet. Some random person that's like, these are solar glasses or something like that, because if you're wrong, you're blind or you have equipment on fire. Either thing, not too great. So the sun, when people think about the sun, generally the first thing they go to is sunspots. Right now, the sun has about an 11-year cycle. Back in 2012, we had a lot of sunspots. It was sort of near the solar maximum. Now 2019, 2020, we're lucky if we get one sunspot. I think right now there's 2 of them on the surface, and they're not as big and dramatic as before. We still do get solar flares and prominences, but they're not as big and they're not as prevalent as they always are. So now's maybe not the best time to get into solar imaging, but if you are interested, it's going to get better in the next couple of years, according to models. So when you're imaging with the solar surfaces, basically you're putting the solar filter on, and it's basically what you see is what you get. You're going to be imaging pretty close to like regular daytime imaging. You're going to have very short exposures. And again, you're going to try to pick something that's good. You can, again, do the stacking setup that you can do with planets if you want to try to get something that's very, very sharp. But most of the time, just a single image like these ones works out quite well. Yeah. So solar transits, that's generally when people really want to get stuff. So when you have eclipses and stuff, those are always well taught. Transits, similar idea. They're all taken about the same, and until you get to like when a sun is completely eclipsed. But for that, it gets very fancy setup, and I actually haven't done it yet because you actually have to be at a location, very specific, often sometimes like 20, 30 kilometer window to get that. But for things like Venus transit, Mercury transit, those generally have a slightly wider window, although depending on where your window is, the planet will basically appear slightly different on the disk. So in this particular series of shots, I was too far north to get it to go right through the center, but I was able to get it going across the disk. And I only had it for, I think, 4.5 hours rather than I think it was something like a 7-hour window. So it gives you an idea here. So this was the Mercury transit last year. This is sort of the chart that you'll see with it to show you where you expect to see the path, where do you go. If the sun is just the sun and there's no sunspots, it's a very nice thing to do, but where does it cross doesn't really matter as much. Whereas if there are sunspots, you can sort of then say, okay, I'm going to plan it and try to get it where maybe Mercury will go in front of the sunspot around. And again, these don't happen very often because it's only when Mercury is passing between this Earth and the sun, and when the disk's alignment is centered. So this generally is a very rare event, and yeah, if you can get them, they're definitely worth traveling for. And this is another type of transit. I have it as a video. I'm not sure if it's going to show, but what it's showing is basically the ISS station crossing the solar plane. And then this one here is the ISS station passing in front of the lunar plane. They're not the greatest images because you have to focus on the ISS. It's only about 300 and something kilometers away, whereas, and it's small. It's very small. But you can do this a lot more than you can with Mercury and stuff. So there's actually a website called transit-finder.com. And this here shows you what you can do when you plug in your coordinates and you plug in a range. And I believe the standard range is 80 kilometers or 50 miles. And basically what it shows you is all the ISS transits based on the orbital data at the moment that you're on the website that are going to occur in your area. So the red lines here are solar transit of the ISS, which happen during the day. And the blue lines are ISS transits of the moon. So you'll end up with each of them will give you a pile of information as to when, where, how big is it going to be, where in the sky is it going to be located, how much of a separation, the transit time. And if you'll note here on the chart, the transit time is like 2.42 seconds. I do know people who do this visually, but it is generally really good to do this with a camera, and especially if you happen to have a camera ideal for like lunar photography, like video camera or something like that. You generally want to be running a video, because this is a blink and you miss it. Like if you have a camera that's taking 7 frames a second, you could be taking 7 frames a second, and over 2 seconds you'll get 20 photos, but you don't get the whole transit. You'll get it jumping across the face. So generally video is best for this. Again, a fast lens if you can. And the solar ones are a lot easier, because the lunar one, you have to expose it a little bit differently. But generally what you do is you try to get the sun or the moon in a good exposure. And then basically as the ISS goes across, it's basically a black dot or black shape of the ISS transiting across. Again, the faster the frame rate, the better and happier you will be. And this app works quite well. And as you can see here at this location, I just pulled this up randomly, but you can see here where it'll show you a photo which says which direction it is going and how far it is across the disk for your location. Obviously, if you're on the center line, it's going to cross the center. If you're off near the edge, it's going to cut the edge, and your transition time is going to cut down dramatically. So this is definitely a website you want to check out. This is a lot of fun because, as you can see here from this photo, the ISS gets everywhere at some point. And if you look at it and say, I want to take a picture of the ISS, it'll give you a month out or 2 months out, and you can definitely say, okay, I can see this. Both those photos I showed, transit videos I showed in the last slide, I actually didn't have to move. They were from my observatory. So it's actually pretty cool, and a lot of people apparently don't know about this. But yeah, this is definitely a fun one to do. Although, yes, you get some very awkward transit times, and this will give you transit times. You do need to make sure that you account for the low horizon in your area, because sometimes it'll be like, you're going to have this transit. You're like, yay, and then you realize there's a tree in the way. So just make sure you double check in Stellarium or whatnot where that transit is going to happen, and where the moon or the sun is located. So yeah, so in terms of like solar imaging and stuff, basically use a solar filter. Just as a relative consideration, a 2000 millimeter lens with a full frame sensor. The sun and the moon, because they are essentially the same size, give or take, super moon or micro moon, or super sun and super moon or micro moon. Basically, you're going to fill the whole frame of the camera, and you're going to have a few pixels on each side. White light filters are generally inexpensive for solar photography. This one here I got for my Edge HD was not that expensive. I got it before the last solar eclipse, and yeah, it goes on the front, and it's pretty good. If you're going to go with hydrogen alpha, or what's called double stack hydrogen alpha, where you're looking at angstrom levels of light, so that's like your coronas and other types of specialty telescopes, although you can fit them onto regular telescopes with a proper filter in the front. It gets quite expensive, and yeah, I would recommend talking to a solar imager about that, because basically at that point you're getting a very, very nice image, but it does require quite a bit of processing. Whereas with light filters, like with a white filter, basically it's what you see is what you get. You can maybe play around with the color a little bit if your white balance isn't perfect, but it's a white filter, it produces white light, and you can just take a picture and maybe a little bit of sharpening or something, and you're good to go. So here's another one that is a transient object, and it's supernovas. Now, it's supernovas in other galaxies. This one here is SN 2020 JFO. It occurred in M61, and I managed to get a photo of it, and you can tell it's there because it's a little dot in the galaxy. And that's it. But it's cool because you're like, wow, it's a supernova. A star over there basically exploded. And the thing is that this is so far away that if you didn't know it was a supernova and you didn't have a comparative image, you just think it's another foreground star, because none of the stars in this photo are in that galaxy. All these stars in this photo are in our galaxy. We're looking past them to see M41. So if we had a supernova in our galaxy, one, it would be a lot brighter. I know everyone was like going nuts last year with Betelgeuse and thinking it's going to explode. And still, fingers crossed, we're far enough away. It's going to be a light show and hopefully no negative effect. But yeah, if a sun went supernova in our galaxy, it would be a much bigger event. After the initial flash, there would be an expanding nebulosity cloud or emission nebula. This one here, as you can see in the photo, is the Veil Nebula. This is actually the remnants of a supernova. And it was a remnants of a supernova that was relatively close to us. So if a supernova ever goes off close to us, we're definitely going to have a light show. Although a lot of other astrophotography stuff will be on hold for a while because they happen. That sharp brightness is going to happen for a few days or a week, and then they're gone. So if somebody says there's a supernova and you want to take a picture of it, you got to get on it because again, it happens, and then obviously it's a transient event because it's only going to happen once, unless something really weird is going on and more stars start exploding nearby. But I don't see that happening, at least not in a I would bet money on it and see it in my lifetime. So then we have nocturnal clouds. Right now, this is the season for nocturnal clouds. I don't know how much longer it's going to go, but and then obviously 6 months later, summer in the southern hemisphere. They are made up of high atmospheric clouds that are basically frozen ice. And they're like, I think it's, yeah. And basically you see them in the early morning. So you got to look east and they're going to be low to the horizon. And you need to be at above or below the equator to see them, obviously in the summer zone of that hemisphere. And it's kind of neat to see them. And ran out and I took a picture of this. It's like, this is not auroras, it's just a cloud. And then later in the day, I Googled it and said, oh, wait, these are really rare clouds. So yeah, they're quite neat. They're quite specific looking. And yeah, if you get them while they're in the summer, it's good. You won't see these things in the winter kind of idea. And then, yeah, so you have aurora borealis, northern lights. You don't really see these in the south because the southern area where you normally see these is Antarctica, which has very few people in it.
Okay, I'm waiting to see if it'll reconnect here. Okay, it's reconnecting. Okay, I think we're back. It'll take a few minutes for YouTube to catch back up, but yeah, the stream I think is working. So maybe back up like 30 seconds from where you're at. Like the last couple. Yeah.
And keep your video off, just in case that was it.
I don't.
Present now.
It wasn't you. And I don't know if it was me either. I think it might have actually just been YouTube. So you should be able to put your video back on.
Let's try it.
All right. So hopefully we're back, and I'm just going to backtrack a few seconds here. We're talking about Noctilucent clouds. Basically, these are things that you can take photos of in the summer. In the early morning, basically, this is ice particles that have frozen in the upper atmosphere that are then reflecting the sunlight back to the ground. It's a summer occurrence in the northern and southern hemisphere. And basically, you're going to look east early morning, generally about an hour before sunrise. As the sunrise, it'll eventually disappear with the light coming from the sun. And it's ideal to be in mid-latitude, like 50 to 70 degree kind of idea, to be able to see it. And if we move here, the next thing I'll have is sort of more of a winter activity, which is the auroras borealis, otherwise known as the northern lights. While it is possible to see this in the southern hemisphere, you do generally need to be in Antarctica or sort of in the oceanic area around it. For land masses, only the most southern land masses will occasionally see it. So that tends to be more of a northern hemisphere activity. It's often in green or red color. It generally looks like dancing light across the sky. It can be easily mistaken as light pollution if you're far away and you're not really expecting it. And basically, it is a really easy one to take a picture of because you basically just need a camera on a tripod. And you can generally go aurora hunting, which is basically drive north. Now, here in Canada, we do get them semi-regularly. The US, because it is south of us, well, unless you're in Alaska, you'll see them occasionally. And then again, Scandinavian countries and northern Russia will see it much more frequently. This is basically based off of corona outbursts from the sun hitting our electromagnetic field out the Earth. So the intensity is going to shift based on that. All right. The next one I have is ISS and Friends. So this is stuff that basically we have done, and these are like orbiting space stations when we have rockets. In this particular photo here, this is the Crew Dragon Demo 2 following the ISS just before it docked. Basically, any vessel that's going up to the ISS, you should be able to image it following the ISS just before it docks and just after it leaves. And yeah, the ISS generally crosses about 3, 4, 5 minutes. Sometimes if you get a low horizon pass, it can last up to about 8 or 10 minutes, but I think that's about as far as it goes. It basically is a bright light crossing the sun, or yeah. It's a bright light crossing the sky. It definitely is moving. It generally moves pretty quickly. I know there's a lot of satellites and stuff up there. It tends to be a tad faster than that, although as people launch new things, object. It is actually possible with a GO2 telescope mount like German Equatorial to actually track the ISS using computer system like SkyX and I'm trying to think what we can use. You can use a GM11, Losmandy G11, but also a lot of Celestron mounts can do this. And obviously, if you own something more expensive, it tends to be able to do this. And you can actually image and track the ISS as it goes across. And then again, you're using basically seeing conditions. So you're using the same tricks as planetary imaging for the ISS in terms of getting that photo. And then basically you're picking the best 2 or 3 photos out of the bunch and you're using it. And ideally you want really, really good seeing because the ISS does change position relative to where you are. So you're not going to see the same direction. Excuse me, you're not going to see the ISS in the same direction. It's like a passing car. You're going to see the front of the ISS, then you're going to see the back of the ISS, and at some point you're going to see the side. So it's a little harder to stack that. So you're basically trying to pick the best image, or maybe a series of 3 or 4 that are close, so you can stack them to sort of get that extra sharpness. So it's kind of neat. But if you just want like it moving across the sky, you can do this. And if you're wondering how I got the star trails effect, that's actually startrail.de. It's free software you can go and get, and then you run it through that, and it'll actually create the star trails. What normally people use to create the star trails, you can actually use it on like ISS and stuff like this, and get like the cool image like that, where it's got basically a star trail as it crosses the night sky, because the stars themselves aren't moving that fast, so they end up still being relatively round and sharp. So other transient events, so you have planes, satellites, meteors, shooting stars. They happen over all the night sky. The sky is rotating. I'm hoping this video works, but you can see there's a lot of stuff going on in the night sky that you could sort of see if you just sort of, lay back and look up. And if you're imaging, if you grab like a fisheye or an ultra wide lens, night sky time lapses, you can't go wrong. But everyone's night sky time lapse will be uniquely different. And obviously, if there's a particular event like a meteor shower happening or something like that, it's going to show up really well in a time lapse. And if you take that wide field time lapse and you do star alignment, you can then do that and get like a cool star shots and stuff. So talking about software, and I seem to get an echo from somebody. Sorry. So talking about second. There we go. All right. So talking about software, pardon me. So if you have a mobile app, nowadays you can do a lot of stuff with your phone. If you have a relatively modern smartphone, you have things like Sky Safari, Star Walk, and the list goes on and on and on. One I've recently seen is called Photo Pills, which I know sounds completely weird, but it actually is a program that's designed to allow you to line up the night sky with your surrounding area to figure out when you want to take like really cool nighttime landscape shots. And then, of course, if you're on a computer, Stellarium is free, and then again, there's a lot of like paid programs that you can check out. So I'm just going to cover Photo Pills for a second because I found this out only like a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to go and try to use this myself. But basically, you can sort of plan out what you're looking for. You can go to the location and use its augmented reality, and then you can sit there and say, okay, I need to be at this location at this time to take this photo in this direction. And you can get shots like that in there. It's kind of neat. It is a paid program, but it's definitely something I'm going to try out. And I just thought I'd give a shout because I keep seeing these photos more and more. And I think 90% of people, this is how they're doing it because this makes the process a lot easier. And again, it will track the moon, the sun, and I think a couple other objects so you can sort of plan out your shots. So I'm going to jump into Stellarium here, and hopefully this is going to work, and just go through some things there. All right. I can hide that. That'd be great. Okay. So this is the current night sky from my observatory, I believe, is where it's located right now. If I was there looking up and there were like giant storm clouds and everything going across. And if we look through here in Stellarium, you can see that there's a lot of different things that you can see here. And what I want to show in Stellarium, let's see if we can have it pop up. Yeah, so I have it turned on here, so it's showing you like here's a Starlink satellite moving across the sky. Here's a Swarm Beast satellite. You can definitely see all the geosynchronous satellites here that have been tagged on. And you can sort of go, and yes, there's a lot of satellites going up there and they're always moving around. But if you're ever wondering like what's moving through the air, you can actually turn this all on in Stellarium and it works quite well. You do have to make sure you do refresh the data. For things like geosynchronous satellites or things that are up there, it's generally not too bad, but anytime something makes a adjustment or a correction, it does change where it's located. Even slightly makes a big difference over the period of days, weeks, hours. So it's something to keep in mind that you can actually turn on. And then I don't know if there's I was kind of hoping there was one out here. We might have to find one. Let's see here. That's my viewing option window. It's not going to tell me. I have it on. Okay, so I guess there's no meteor showers right now, but it'll actually come up with a little green point and show you meteor showers where they're originating. But yeah, so you can also have it where this shows comets. So if I were to go in here and go to search, and you have to go over here for search. There you go. And I go, and you do have to like type in the actual thing. So it's 2020. Let's see if I have it. No, it's on my laptop, so it's not updated. You do have to update these things, but let's just pick one here. It really doesn't matter which one it is as long as it's not in the ground. Awesome. Okay. But yeah, so you can use this to find your comets as well. But I don't have my laptop updated, which I forgot to do. Apologies to the more recent ones. I don't think it even has NeoWise in it. Anyway, so yeah, so you can see here that you can definitely see all the satellites flying around. Oh, there we go. So here's the Perseids. So this is what it shows as a meteor shower that's occurring. And it will basically give you up in the top left-hand corner all the basic information about it. Right now, there'll be a few meteorites coming from it because it is we're starting to go into the tail of what used to be a comet that passed. but you'll see here the maximum is going to be on August 13th, and its activities from July 17th until about the 24th of August. And then it has some population index and stuff like this, which you can use to basically figure out how many meteorites you're expecting to see per hour, and some rotational, anyway, pile of fun information. So yeah, when there's a meteor shower, you can see this in Stellarium, and you then know where you point your camera, although you'd point the camera probably a wide angle shot about like this, and you'll see the stars, you'll see the meteorites and the shooting stars basically radiate from that location across the night sky, and that's kind of cool. So that's sort of how you can use Stellarium to sort of see these stuff. You do occasionally, and that's where I want to go up to this one here. You have to go into here, and you need to. Where is it? Which one is it? Oh, sorry, this one here. You do need to go into the configuration window, and you can type off a whole bunch of stuff like this, and then you go here, extras. You can download a bunch of different catalogs that are going to give you more and more information, and then you can go to tools, or is it plugins? Plugins, yeah. So here in the plugins, you can do pulsars, quasars. Here you can do satellite, and you can do load up the satellite. You can do solar system stuff, and where is it? We got exoplanets, and yeah, so you got meteor showers that are here, but why don't I have the other one loading up at startup? Is it a script? And there's a bunch of scripts and stuff. So you can sort of dive in here and look it up, and it should do that. I'm not sure why the comments didn't load up. Apologies for that. But yeah, so Stellarium tends to be able to do everything. It's not the greatest software in the world, but it's free. And as you can see here, you can sort of track things as they go through the night sky. And I'll just close that off there. And back here. There we go. So questions that don't involve UFOs, thank you. I haven't seen any. That's my answer.
Actually, I haven't seen any questions come in, which is unusual, but maybe you're just really thorough.
You guys good?
Is anybody, any of the panelists have a question?
Have you used CalSky? First off, Graeme, thanks for the presentation. And a couple of people have commented that they're enjoying the presentation. And there's one character out there who says he's listening to it, which is, I don't know how he's doing that. But as he's driving along, he's listening to it, and he likes your show. But I was going to say, turn on your, stop sharing and turn on your video again. And have you used CalSky to help you calculate where ISS transit or is going to happen, transit the moon or something?
No, I've just been using like Transit Finder, and then there's a couple things that I've used where it'll tell me that ISS is flying across the night sky, and I've used those. I tend to just pick things that are easy.
Okay. Yeah.
Graeme, if you are trying to get the IIS across the moon, I know there are different distances. If you focus on the moon, how sharp would the space station appear? Would it be a blurry blob, or?
It's blurry. I tried to show that in the presentation, and it is showing the ISS go across. But yeah, the ISS generally, it's depending on where it is. Again, if it's right above you, it's only, I think, 325 kilometers up. So yeah, it's telescopes, depending on what you have and your f-stop number, it's just going to be blurry. So you have to sort of guess on the focus. So you get the sun or the moon in focus, and then you sort of take a slight step back, and then you cross your fingers and hope for the best.
So you have to
or if the ISS is going across earlier, you try to focus on the ISS and then say, "Yay, I got focus," for when it goes across transit, and then don't touch it for a week or two.
Would you practice on other satellites? What would be a good strategy if you're trying? I'm not trying. I'm quite curious.
The issue with focusing on other satellites is that they're much dimmer, and the problem with that is that they tend to come across as like a single light point. Like the ISS is much bigger than most satellites up there, and a lot of satellites are actually a lot higher than the ISS. The ISS is in low Earth orbit. A lot of the satellites that we see, like I know Starlinks are quite low, but a lot of satellites are generally much higher orbit. So I don't know if you focus on a satellite and it's like geostationary. I think that's I take lovely pictures. I don't know the details on it, but I believe they are a much higher orbit than
Yeah.
the ISS is.
A,
So I think you can be closer, but
a geostationary satellite's at about 22,000 miles, whereas the
Yeah.
space station is more like, I think, 250. But I'm not sure on that.
I don't think,
eh,
like on the f-stops that we normally shoot these things at, I don't think there's a focus difference between 200 miles and 200 light years. There's no focus lift. It's not like, you know, here you're talking about your nose and your eye, like, you know.
I have noticed, I mean, it shouldn't be the case, but I have noticed when I switch from shooting a planet to a DSO, I have to refocus. Like the planet will have been in focus, but the star is close, but not quite on, and vice versa. If I move from a star to the moon, I usually have to refocus. And it doesn't make any sense, but I find that to be the case.
Well, the focus on telescopes is very, very, very fine, because you are basically trying to pick that ideal point. Like, if you take a picture, like if you were to try to focus on the moon and then you try to image something else, it is going to be slightly out of focus, because again, things that are like the moon and stuff, you're going to have like a lot of atmospheric problems. Whereas with stars, they're point source light. You know, you focus on them. If you're doing it electronically, it'll do it. If you're using a Bahtinov mask, you could do that, and you're basically looking at that and adjusting for the seeing. So it's a little different, but yeah, in terms of like focusing on the ISS, it's a bit of a pain.
Am I sharing my screen now?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
That picture right there was taken by focusing on the moon and letting the space station pass in front of it without any adjustments for focus whatsoever. So while Graham's experience may be different with his telescopes, I would suggest that everybody try to focus on the moon or the sun. Some pointers that I've picked up through the years of doing this is that you want it to be a nearly overhead moon or sun when you're doing this. The reason is because when it is overhead, that space station is relatively close, and compared to it's 4 or 5 times, I think, further away when the moon, for instance, is on the horizon than it is when it's directly overhead. Okay, so that matters a lot.
So one note about being directly overhead is that if you're doing this when it's not directly overhead, you have like a transit time of like 2-3 seconds type of thing. If it's directly overhead, the transit time is a lot less.
Yeah, but if what you want to do is get a picture of the space station, it's really cool to have a big space station compared to the moon.
Oh yeah.
And that,
absolutely.
you know, it's 5 times closer, I think. So it's 5 times. I don't know what the actual trigonometry to it is, but you should be able to see the solar panels. You see some of the other details. This is David Morris's shot of the same on the same night. This big bright one here is actually, you'd have to be in space to get that. And I should say that is a composite picture. I was taking video at I don't know. And I just started my video, and then I got these 7 pictures. They were originally 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frame, and I put those together, composited over the moon itself, and that moon is a composite of 7 frames. Okay, out of Deep Sky Stacker. So yeah, it can be done, and I would suggest you go out and do it. You may have difficulty doing it. This idea of focusing on it when it's in some other position, I would think that would be virtually impossible. There are mounts that can track the International Space Station, but
Mhm.
that in itself is a feat. I mean, just
Yeah.
getting the proper motion of the scope, having everything perfectly lined up, that in itself is an achievement. And then to be focusing on it at the same time, you might be pushing your luck. Um, so I would say if you want to get this picture here, you focus on the moon as well as you can, and just take the picture when the object is passing in front of it. That's about as good as it's going to get for you, I should think. But this is fun to do. One thing that Graeme did not mention that I think I made a comment on as far as this goes, because this is fun. This is a fun thing to do. Is after you've made all your plans and figured out where you're going to be and everything else like that, a few hours before you go out, recheck Cal Sky. In my case, that's what I was using, and Graeme had Transit Finder, was it called?
Oh yeah.
And check that because they correct their orbital elements on a
Quite
regular
frequently.
basis. Yeah, quite frequently. And if you're off 3 miles on the ground, you're going to miss the transit. You just got to be right where you need to be. Don't say I was close. Close don't count. You got to have it backlit by the object if you want to see it.
Yeah. So before
Okay.
you pack the car, double check the transit
Yeah.
data,
Okay.
and then check again before you leave.
Okay. Have we gotten more questions along the way there? Let's see. Where are we?
I'll take a look here, but let's see. You answered Tim Meyer's question about how you took your image, Alex.
I would. There's a link someplace in there, and I think it's this is the article that I wrote for the newsletter,
Mhm.
and I think, yeah, I think that here's how to do it. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, am I? Anyway, let me go back and turn my screen share on. I can remember how to do that. Present now, it's called here, your entire screen. Okay, so in this article, which you can find at Alex homepage articles, transit PDF, there's a link up in the earlier in the comments. There's a whole section here about how to do it. Now, I should tell you that this is from January of 2010. In 10 years, things have changed. There's different websites. There's different, there's all sorts of things that are different as to how you would do things now, probably. But many of these concepts are still the same. I was using video, and David was using single shot, burst shot repeated on his Canon. And then there was a third guy there that was using his Canon, and his Canon went to sleep, because it had been sitting there waiting, and it wasn't doing anything, so it went to sleep. And he couldn't figure out, hey, it didn't take any pictures at all. So believe me, this is not easy to do. You have to get everything right. You have to be there. You have to know how to do it. You have to be in the right place, make sure things haven't changed on where it's going to be and all that other stuff. So all that stuff matters. Okay. Now, did I answer the question well enough there? Where are we? Go back to the meeting and stop sharing the screen. Okay.
Yeah, I've not seen any more questions come in from YouTube. Several thank yous to Graeme, and great presentations and very interesting and informative. And yeah.
Alex Journey's coming in next week. He's going to tell us about nightscape photography and time-lapse animations. We've had some stuff on nightscape photography, although every presentation's different. But I don't think we've had any time-lapse animations, and we're going to get some of that next week. And the week after that, how to make a 200-panel mosaic if you're really into detail. So we do need more presenters. So please come on in and present, offer yourself as a presenter. Oh, we really would appreciate that. Where's my video? The video's on. Okay. With that in mind, I think we're finished for the evening. Molly, are you ready to take us out?
Yep, I will take us out.
And Molly, thank you for all the work you did today. The YouTube was not being nice to us, but we figured it out. Thank you very much, Molly.
Yep.
Okay. Bye, everybody. See you next week. Oh, don't forget to get your Neowises in.
Yeah, it's now or never.